While AI won't replace all software developers anytime soon, it can be very helpful in many scenarios. And GitHub Copilot, with its integration in VSCode and Visual Studio, among other things, takes that to a whole new level. You can't remember a RegEx syntax? Well, who does, right? Or do you want to understand what a 10-year-old function does? Or yet, do you need to change the behavior of a piece of code in a language you don't really know? Let's talk about this and much more. Hey, welcome back. I'm CoderDave, and here we try and do DevOps just better. Today, I have something very special for you. This is the presentation and demos I've recently delivered at the Global AI conference here in Hong Kong, where I talk about GitHub Copilot and some of the pretty cool things it can do. I hope you can take inspiration from what I show, and let me know in the comments down below if you know of any other neat uses of GitHub Copilot. And remember to leave a like in the video down below if at any point you're enjoying it. But enough of this, let's go to the content. Enjoy. I want to start with a couple of introductions about GitHub Copilot. Some of you may know the tool, some other don't, so I want to be on the same page before we jump into more technical and demo stuff. What is GitHub Copilot? And by the way, this slide is the source is Microsoft and GitHub, so take it as you will. But apparently, it's the most widely adopted AI developer tool on the market. For some of the features can be used for free. Some other features, as most of the AI tooling, it's a paid for service. And apparently, this as of last month, I believe, there were about 1 million paid users, buying and using Copilot in over 190 countries. And again, this source of GitHub, they found out that people using GitHub Copilot, they can be like 55% faster in coding. Apparently on GitHub itself, 46% of the code written as of last month was somewhat generated or helped by GitHub Copilot. And I don't know if this is true or not, but they said that 57% of people using Copilot feel more fulfilled because they can focus on writing code that they actually want to rather than repetitive stuff and stuff like that. But going more into slightly more details, it's if you ever had a pair programming experience, you know that it's a bouncing of ideas between you and the other person that's writing code with you. You can do sort of the same thing with GitHub Copilot, in which he's your senior developer helping you doing things. It offers code suggestions. It offers auto-completion and so on and so forth. And you can use it in many ways. You can write a comment in the code and to describe the logic you want and let Copilot write the code for you. Or you can use, as I mentioned before, to autofill repetitive code. You can quickly produce like boilerplate code, or even fill in code patterns that are maybe repetitive than you do all the time. Another very useful way to use it is to auto suggest tests. For example, if you import a unit test package, Copilot can suggest tests for you and match the implementation of the code you have. And this is important because one thing I didn't mention is this adapts on your coding style. Like everyone coding style is different. I may write code in a certain way. You may write code in a different way. And when Copilot first came out, it was like very, very generic. But now it has the ability to adapt to the way you code. So if it writes a test for you in a test suite that you've already written, then 99% of the time the structure will be the same as you normally do, or the syntax, and maybe use var instead of having strongly typed variables and stuff like that. So all of that is taken by Copilot. Another thing you can do is, for example, ask Copilot to show a list of solutions that you then can use as provided, or you can add it to meet your needs. And these are just a few examples. We will see a few more things later in the demo. As I mentioned, it uses the context you provide, and again, we'll talk about them there a little bit more later. But you can constrain it to a single code file, or you can have the whole workspace as part of that, and it works in basically any programming language. When it came out, it was basically only good for a few programming languages, but as of today, it covers basically everything and anything. And that also makes it very useful because you can, for example, try and use it on a code bases that maybe are very old or that you never used before, and you can, have a pretty good result out of that as well. And not only works with like almost every programming language, but it has extensions that you can install in most of the popular IDEs. You can see on screen some icons like VSCode directly on GitHub itself, by the way, because there's like the VSCode web in GitHub directly, so that works there as well. JetBrains, Visual Studio, and so on and so forth. Not only, but with those extensions, with these integrations in IDEs, and you can see in the screen an example with VS Code, which, by the way, is the IDE I will use for the demo later. You can have like a chat-like experience with GitHub Copilot. And once again, we will see that in a second in action. But basically, you can ask it to do, all the things you see on screen, like explain some code for me, or how can I fix these? What this does? Is that safe? And so on and so forth. There are really way too many things Copilot can do to just put in a single slide. But again, we will take a look at that in a second. But before we check out the demo, there is something that I want to point out. The way it works, it analyzes your code and comments and generate code and completion and so on based on your coding style and learning from existing code bases that you may have, and or popular open source stuff, or Microsoft code, GitHub code, and so on and so forth. There was a big debate at the beginning because it seemed like GitHub was training Copilot on unauthorized or different licensed code. That is I don't know if that was true or not, but I know that they said multiple times that Copilot respect privacy, respect licenses. So if you use it on your code, that code, for example, will not be shared with anybody else. Copilot will learn from your code for you, but it will not use what it learns for everybody or anybody else. And obviously, there's when we talk about AI, this is good. This is true for basically every LLM, every model, whether it's ChatGPT or anything else. It's always a problem of finding the balance and how the AI responds, right? Sometimes we've seen in the past there were incidents in which with just a few game of word, they were able to have whatever AI assistant replying in offensive ways, or using terminology that was not good for or respectful or inclusive or anything like that, or ethical. I actually never tried to to crack Copilot and let him do or let him say something that was not good, but I know that Copilot is backed by the same I forgot the name, but it's a technology that Microsoft has on the Azure AI, I believe it's called, which has a lot of boundaries in place to avoid exactly that. Last thing I want to mention is about the cost. As I mentioned before, there are paid offerings and there are a lot of paid users, but it's free for students, free for teachers, and if you are a verified open source maintainer, you can also get access to Copilot for free. With all of that said, let's see this in action, and I will start with everybody's favorite, which is regular expressions, right? As you can see, I have a regular expression here. I'm definitely not good at regular expressions, so I have no idea. I mean, I think I can kind of figure out what this regular expression does, but I'm very lazy. So what should I do? Well, I have GitHub Copilot here. Oops, not here. I have GitHub Copilot here for me, and this is the GitHub Copilot chat. So what I can do is try and ask Copilot to let me know what this does. So I can just say, what does this regular expression do. And you can see that it used as reference, I believe it was visible before, this file. And now it is explaining me exactly what this regular expression does. You can still see that what it took in consideration is just this file, and we will talk about that in a second. So analyzing just what it has in this file is able to give me the full explanation and the breakdown of what this specific regular expression does. Let me make this a little bit bigger so we can see it. And it says it is matched to a specific pattern, and explain exactly which, each part of the regular expression, what that does. I can also ask, for example, how can I change it to accept only lowercase text and numbers? And again, just after a second is typical of many LLMs. They give you the answer just in bits. People like it, people don't like it. I don't necessarily do. But again, now I have these regular expression, and I can copy, or I can directly insert in wherever part of my code I am. And you can see that I add the new regular expression. Now this is a fairly easy regular expression, but I had to use these in a very, very complicated regular expression, and I there was no way I would able to to do it myself. With this, I was able to actually in seconds understand what the regular expression was doing and change it, because it has a bug. It had a bug in it. So this is the experience with the GitHub Copilot chat. As I was saying before, now it's taking in consideration the whole file, right? What if now now that I have two regular expressions on the same file, if I ask the same question, it may get confused. So what I can do is, for example, I can just select the one I want, and I can ask again, can you explain this one? As you can see, I don't have to add anything else. It will figure out by itself it is a regular expression. I just said explain this one. And as soon as it finished, I don't know if you were able to catch it, we can see that it took in consideration the line 3, which is the one I selected. So GitHub Copilot is, I believe we can say context aware, because before I only had one line, so it didn't matter, but now I was able to select a piece of code or a line or whatever it is and have the result I wanted just based on that. And if we can see here, something that we didn't actually have before, but we also have an explanation in an example with given a specific index, because what we said before is that it does that specifically on an index, basically. So I now also have an example based on that specific index. Let's close this for a second, and let's move to another example. Now, I'm not a developer anymore. I do a lot of other things, but when I code, I use .NET and Python. For me, I never took a time to learn Python. I don't know Python, so I have been given this, and I have no idea what this does. So what I can do is, for example, like let's take this class, and again I can go on the chat, which again is not that one, but it's this one, and I can let's start a new chat, and I can say, can you tell me what this class does? And again, okay, it's not a class, my bad. It's also correcting me. It's a Python script, and it explains me everything. But we've seen this already with the regular expressions. So let's try something different. Let's take, for example, this one. Now, I don't know Python, but I know that usually, let me close this so it's a bit clear. I know that usually syntaxes like this are not good for security. There's a lot of potential error here that can happen, potential SQL injections, and so on and so forth. Let's see if GitHub Copilot knows that. So I will select this. And let me still go on the chat. Well, I'll talk about that other part in a second. So let me start a new one, and I can ask, is this bit of code safe? And in fact, GitHub is saying, no, this code is not safe. It's vulnerable to SQL injection and so on and so forth. And it's explaining not only what happened, but it's not just saying that it's not safe, but it's also explaining me why it's not safe, what happened. It gives me examples on what the problem could be, and so on and so forth. Not only, but it gives me also a way to fix this. But let's say I'm even lazier. So I can just go here. This thing comes up. You see these stars here, and I said, fix this code so it is safer. And this gives me also the opportunity to do to talk about another thing. There are now these shortcuts. Like one of these is /fix that you can use, so you don't have to use the full can you fix this code or stuff like that. You just can ask or can type /fix, and automatically GitHub Copilot will try and fix whatever is wrong or not safe in this case on the bit of code you have there. You can use other things like /comment, /test, or /explain, which again do what it say. In this case, it said again, it tells me very quickly what the problem was, and I can decide to discard or accept the change. And I believe it's a safer version of the code. Again, I don't know Python, so I wouldn't know how to do this. I would have to go and Google it or whatever, or go on Bing, since I have a Microsoft t-shirt. But now I have a version of the code that it's safer than it used to be before. And again, I didn't have to know Python. Obviously, now you need to trust Copilot and say, hopefully that is safe. And what if I ask now? I need to use the chat though. Is this code safe? And even though, if you see, I misspelled, I said sage instead of safe. Now it tells me, yeah, it is safe. Let's move on to something else. This was Python. Let's go to .NET. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm a .NET developer at heart, so I would probably know how to do this. But let's say I have this. I've been tasked to calculate this logarithm of a number, and maybe I'm not good at math. Maybe I don't know .NET, so I have no idea what to do. Again, what I can do here is implement this for me. And I can accept that, yes. And I don't know why it did this weird thing in which it put a method inside a method, which technically works in .NET with local functions, but this is probably not what I wanted to have. This is the good part of demos, right? But now I have an implementation on this. I'm surprised because I ran this before, and it also suggested to change these to double, because the return of value of this function is double instead of float. This time instead it converts directly to float, and this gives me an opportunity to talk about something that is often overlooked in AI in general, and especially in AI programming companion or coding companion, if you will. Sometimes you will ask it to do something and it will do it in a certain way. Sometimes it will do it in another way. This is based on how LLM works, right? It's a count of probabilities, and I'm not an expert in how that works, but I know that it not always give the same result. And this is especially true when you run demos like this, because if you I ran these a couple of times before, and if you keep repeating the same thing, what Copilot and AI models in general think is that you are not happy with the solution that it provided before. So Since this is my third or fourth time that I ask the same thing to Copilot, it may have thought that this is not exactly the answer they gave me before was not exactly what I was looking for. So I tried to find another way. As users of AI, we need always to keep in mind that first of all, it's not infallible. Like there may be issues, but also it may change the result based on context or based on how many times we ask for a thing or something like that. This is instead something that I haven't run before. So let's see if I can make it work. So send an email. As we said before, even just putting a comment, Copilot should be able to generate code. Now, I'm not 100% sure why it's not working. It should be auto-completing or giving me suggestions, and apparently right now it's not doing that. And again, it's obviously a good part of being in a live demo. Let's try to generate a method to send an email based on the previous code. There you go. As you can see in here, I have message, subject, and address. And I have send email as name of the function. So GitHub just took that and generate for me the function with the same name using the parameters I've defined above and sending, whatever email with whatever client. I want to try something else. This uses, I believe, system mail message. I want to try something else, which again, I haven't tried, so I hope it works. I want to say, convert these to use SendGrid. SendGrid, if you don't know, it's an email client and SDK. Please refresh your prompt. Apparently, there was something in here that he didn't like. SDK, maybe. Sometimes you run into this. Oh, what happened? Let me try that again. Change these to use the SendGrid SDK. There you go. And now it just took the same code and changed it to use the SendGrid SDK, which I mentioned before is another email client that maybe you may want to use instead of the other one. I guess the problem I had before is I used the term convert, which maybe if though it's not ethical or politically correct, or I don't know, but it worked. You need to work around those small things sometimes. Right. Next one. So I have these. Let's try this. I have this class. I call it email manager, and I have a bunch of methods and functions in here. But as you can see, I do not have any test. So what I want to do is I want to create a new file here, email manager tests.cs, and I want to say, can you please generate the unit tests for the email manager.cs file. Could you provide? Oh, that's another thing that I wanted to talk about. Like, I'm executing this in this new email manager test file. By default, the context that GitHub Copilot takes in consideration is the file you're in, the file you're in. So when I do that, it just says, I don't know what this email manager.cs is. So let's do this. At workspace. Now, at is a new function that has been added in GitHub Copilot that allows you to basically either change the context or ask for specific things. Right now, you only have three voices here available. You can ask it to do something in the terminal. You can ask something about VS Code, or you can ask about your workspace. And then you can do that, or you can pass the code directly in here. But basically, I gave the whole workspace as a context. So now GitHub Copilot is basically reading and scanning and learning from all I have in here, and it can't do that. So let's go here and let's try to do it from the code, this class directly. And yeah, let's do it from here. Can you please generate unit tests for? Let's change this from this file. There you go. And now it's generating all the tests for my class. Now, I don't know you, but I don't really enjoy writing unit tests. So let me make this a little bit bigger. So the fact that I have something or someone that can write the tests for me, it's a good thing. So I don't have to do, as we were saying before, all the repetitive tasks or all the boring stuff. And I guess that's why GitHub says that whoever uses Copilot is 75% more happy or something. And it also tells me, and this is important, it also tells me that it gives some disclaimer that there are missing assertion in those tests because we use a different SDK. And again, it says, which is a side effect that can be observed directly in a unit test. So, and again, this is, in my opinion, is fairly important because it's easy to forget that this is just another software doing things for you. So you may think that, okay, that's all I need. When in fact, like in this case, it's not all you need. And you may have edge cases that you may need to cover yourself. But at least you have 90% of the code already written and you can use that from there. I have two more examples. Let's go away from these .NET and Python, and let's talk about scripting. Because this can be useful not only for developers, but also for DevOps people and to analyze data and so on and so forth. In this case, and this is actually a real example, I may show you later what the actual result came out, but I had a requirement to retrieve some secrets from our Kubernetes cluster. And being, as I mentioned before, lazy as I am, I didn't want to write everything by myself. So I just use Copilot and I can say write a script to, and I can copy this because, as I said, I'm lazy, to retrieve all secrets from a Kubernetes cluster. So, okay, that's not what I was expecting. That is technically correct. It gets the secrets from a cluster. This is also important because it shows that it does have knowledge of third-party tools like kubectl in this case. Let's try to change these into exporting secret values. Okay, now we have a slightly more complete script or command, which allows me to, as I said before, retrieving the secrets and exporting the secret values into, in this case, variable, but I can keep changing that to allow for different things. Like, for example, I want to change these to save all the secret values into a string, into a file, because we want to do, save stuff. There we go. So even if you're not super familiar with Bash or scripting, you can achieve that. Last example I have is a similar thing, and I wanted to, as the comments say, to check if a DNS record exists in Azure, and if it does, delete it. Let me copy this. All right. And again, when I do this, it should be able to do exactly what I need. So again, it has now knowledge of third-party tooling like the AZ CLI. It gives me some comments and explanations. As I mentioned before, it's context aware. So I didn't ask him to do, bash or anything else, but because it's in an sh file, it uses shell scripting syntax because it knows by where it is. In this case, I specified before like bin bash. If I would have said like zsh or any other shell, if it was anything else to change based on the shell type, then that would be done based on conventions or components that any shell scripting environment has. Last but not least, I want to try something else, which is, and let me go back to the chat. I quite like using the chat rather than the experience. And by the way, you can also press Ctrl and I to have that prompt coming up. But I want to say, can you please add comments to this code? And as you can see, like it's generating the comments. And once it's done, we can also decide to replace the code we have with this new commented one. And you can see it gives a fairly long and complete explanation of everything. So this is also pretty good. Going back to the Python example I had before, I can go in any class or any script and say, I have no idea what this thing is doing. So I can always go here and say, add comments to this file. And again, it says, you can use /doc to generate documents, documentation. And now you can see that I have everything commented. And now I probably know what this thing is doing. So this is the demo I had. As I mentioned before, GitHub Copilot can do so many more things. I wanted to show you some of the things that I use all the time based on documentation, based on explaining things to me, regular expressions, which everybody loves. This is what I use it for. This is what I think it's very useful for. Even if you are a very senior developer, I think you can find it very, very useful. Going back for a moment on the slides, I just want to recap what we've seen and what GitHub Copilot can do. It can convert comments to code. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to see that. For some reason, it was not working. But as soon as you put a comment in your code, you should be able to start already in line suggesting code. I don't know why it was not working today. Fill repetitive code, also suggest tests or create tests for you. Can explain code, as we've seen. We have this new-ish chat experience in the IDE, which, in my opinion, is the best thing. I like that kind of interaction rather than the inline one, but that's obviously completely personal and subjective. Yeah, that's basically all I have. I want to thank you for this, and again, let me know if there is any question first of all, but also feel free to contact me through any of the means you see on the slide, because if you have any question or anything you like, do let me know. All right, what did you think of the session? Let me know in the comments below if you liked it, of course, and if you have any other uses for GitHub Copilot you find very useful. Finally, and equally as importantly, check out this video over here in which I talk about the security best practices for handling GitHub action secrets. But that's it for me. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. Hit the like button below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I see you here in the next video on CoderDave.